Let's start by checking on the aftermath of Typhoon Rolly, which left behind heavy damage in southern Luzon, particularly in the Bicol region. The full force of News 5 is covering the situation in Albay as several towns reported heavy losses and damage due to lahar. They will bring us the latest updates from the ground later on in the newscast. For now, we track Rolly, now just a tropical storm as it makes its way outside the Philippine area of responsibility after wreaking havoc on Sunday. Latest data from Pag-asa shows Rolly at 225 kilometers west of Iba, Zambales. It is expected to exit PAR Tuesday morning. Tropical storm Shawnee, meanwhile, which entered the Philippine area of responsibility on Sunday, was spotted 665 kilometers east of Cagayan. Shawnee is expected to remain a tropical storm within the next 2 days, bringing light to moderate rains over Batanes, Cagayan, and Isabela. At its current pace, Shawnee may likely exit the Philippine area of responsibility by Saturday. Considered the year's strongest typhoon and the most destructive since Yolanda, Typhoon Rolly has affected more than 2 million individuals, displacing more than 100,000 families. Death toll from the super typhoon reached at least 16, 10 coming from Albay, 6 from Catanduanes, where it first made landfall. More than a dozen road sections were also damaged, while 4 bridges were affected. Initial damage to agriculture has reached at least 1 billion pesos, that's according to the Department of Agriculture. The PNP, meanwhile, says more personnel have been deployed in the Bicol region following the onslaught. The PNP said they will remain on red alert even as Rolly exits the Philippine area of responsibility. Disaster management officials, meanwhile, have deployed more personnel in Catanduanes to aid communication challenges after Typhoon Rolly damaged most communication links.
Satellite phone at radio communications, kaya limited din kasi tinitipid pa po nila din yung energy.
Search and retrieval operations continue as 2 residents remain missing after Rolly wreaked havoc in the province. The typhoon-induced lahar flow from Mayon volcano, meanwhile, killed at least 4 last Sunday.
Jun's face and body are covered in wounds and bruises. He said he tried to escape Mayon volcano's lahar flow and rocks, triggered by Typhoon Rolly's onslaught. Jun could barely move due to the excruciating pain, but nothing compares to the pain of losing his beloved wife, Ligaya, an 18-year-old niece, to the violent mud flow.
Patay na ako. Bukas na lang kita yung magkikita.
Authorities found Jun almost lifeless and naked in a debris-filled area. The remains of his wife and niece were also recovered not too far from their house.
Sabi ko, patay na ako. Wala na akong ngayon. Yung kimot ko, yung bibig ko, buhangin. Yung ilong ko, buhangin. Yung tenga ko, buhangin. Yung mata ko, buhangin din.
Mayor Ann Onjoko said they were not expecting that much damage, especially in Barangay San Francisco and Travesilla. She stressed that they conducted preemptive evacuations, but nothing could have prepared them for what happened.
Hindi naman po nagkulang ang LGU, hindi naman po nagkulang ang barangay official. Yun nga lang po, unforeseen yung kahapon. Reiterate ko na hindi naman talaga dinadaanan dati.
Onjoko said all the town's casualties were due to the lahar flow. No less than 200 homes were buried by lahar from Mayon. Paul Alanes of the Mayon Observatory explained that the active volcano also released a lahar during previous typhoons like Quinta and Pipito. State Weather Bureau Pag-asa, for its part, said it warned about the impending dangers resulting from Rolly's destruction, including a lahar flow.
Count mo ko. Robbie, some 800 residents are still at the evacuation center while the LGU is looking for funds to augment the rehabilitation efforts. Robbie.
Aside from heavy rains and winds, Rolly also triggered lahar flows from the Mayon volcano in Rolly hit Bicol. Prior to the onslaught of the typhoon, Rolly Phivox warned residents about possible lahar mudflow due to consecutive storms over the past weeks. Typhoon Pipito and Quinta filled up with water the land surrounding the active volcano. Photos uploaded by Ako Bicol Representative Zaldico shows a number of houses buried under lahar from the Mayon volcano. Residents complained that the mudflow was caused by quarrying activities in the area. Phivox said the heavy rains triggered muddy runoff in rivers near Mayon, which then overflowed to nearby roads and towns. Phivox hopes that succeeding storms this year will bring less rainfall as it is likely for volcanic sediment flows to happen again due to heavy rains.
Yung consistency po kasi ng lahar, depende po saan may. At it's most extreme na yung consistency. Para po siyang semento. Yung bagong halo. So, minsan slow moving, mukha siyang slow moving, pero sa sobrang lapot niya, pag nahulog ka doon, medyo mahirap nang lumabas. Hindi ka na makakawala dahil sobrang lapot niya. Yung consistency po niya. Pero in some cases po, medyo malabnaw. Pero unfortunately, may mga kasama po siya mga boulders or mga bato. Okay. So, delikado po siya talaga.
The lahar flow also affected the town of Tabaco in Albay, with hundreds of residents seeking refuge inside a church. To give us a better picture of the town's harrowing experience, we have Romel Lopez reporting live from Tabaco. Romel.
Yes, Robbie, it was a devastation left and right in the town of Tabaco, Albay. That's why residents here are crying for help to rebuild their lives after the wrath of Typhoon Rolly. In an amateur video taken during the onslaught of Typhoon Rolly, heavy rain scorched Barangay Bantayan in Tabaco City. Within hours, lahar flow raged down to the communities near Mayon volcano. This is how Barangay Bantayan in Tabaco City looks today. Once a progressive barangay in Albay province, it's now nearly buried under lahar. Huge rocks and sand covered the provincial road, isolating them from the city proper. No less than 100 houses were damaged. Lourdes Canaria said she was lucky to have evacuated early. Otherwise, there's no telling if she would have survived. Still, she can't help but feel sorry now that all of their properties are half buried in mud and lahar.
Hindi ako mamamatay sa sakit. Sa takot ako mamamatay.
Bakit kanyo? Bakit kanyo rin?
Siyempre yung nervyos mo, yung makikita mo yung lugar mo.
What's more heartbreaking, she said, is that they have yet to receive any assistance from the government.
Ni single centavo wala pa. Wala talaga. Kaya maski makarating naman itong sinasabi kong ito, totoo ang sinasabi namin. Wala kami nakukuha, walang kahit na isang sentimo. Iiyak ka na lang at iiyak.
The city proper of Tabaco was not spared from Rolly's wrath. From schools to school vehicles, market stalls and electric posts to a century-old church. Father Jerome Sevilla of the St. John the Baptist Church said 500 evacuees stayed in the church. They were all fortunate to have survived to tell the tale.
First time po itong nangyari dito. Kahapon nga po paglabasan after ng typhoon. Actually may mga evacuees kami dito. More or less 500. No? So at 6 o'clock, yung pinakamalakas na hangin na 6 o'clock, nag-open siya. Lahat kami nagsisiksik na doon sa loob. So they were telling it's the first time na nangyari ito. Though yung riming malakas din yun dito that hit Bicol, but nothing happened sa simbahan. So ito po, pagdating first time itong nangyari na open ito, na nabaklas yung bubong at yung ceiling.
Robbie, so far there's only one reported casualty in the town of Tabaco, and up to now all lines of communication in the area are down. Electricity is also a problem in the area. Robbie?
Maraming salamat, Romel Lopez. We'll go for a quick break. When the big story returns, the president makes his first appearance since Typhoon Rolly hit southern Luzon. He wants a probe on quarrying activities in Albay. And the palace maintains that closure of ABS-CBN's regional offices did not leave any communication vacuum during the calamities. The details next. Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. You're still watching The Big Story. Rolly's rage was felt outside the borders of the Bicol region as the now tropical storm left a trail of destruction in a handful of areas, especially in southern Luzon, before exiting the country's landmass. In Tierra Verde subdivision in Batangas, residents have begun to clean up mud along roads brought by the heavy flooding. While residents in the flood-prone area are used to flash floods, they said Typhoon Rolly took them by surprise due to the rapid rush and rise of water levels. Still in Batangas, residents of Barangay Mataas na Bayan in the town of Lemery spotted wider and deeper road cracks after the typhoon. They said the cracks first appeared after Taal volcano erupted back in January. TVOC said they are still investigating the cause of the fissures. In Quezon, 50,000 individuals were evacuated after Rolly unleashed its strength on the province at around 3 p.m. yesterday. The PDRRMO said at least half of the households in the province are still out of power. The typhoon also destroyed some fish pens in Laguna de Bay after the lake overflowed due to heavy rains on Sunday. Some residents took the opportunity to buy fish at cheaper prices. floods caused by the typhoon in nearby towns are slowly subsiding. The NDRRMC has meanwhile started road clearing operations in badly hit Catanduanes, where Typhoon Rolly first made landfall. As of Tuesday, authorities said all roads in 26 barangays are already passable. Clearing operations in Camarines Sur started Sunday afternoon after Rolly's strong winds toppled electric posts and trees along some roads. The national highway in Nabua was also unpassable after the typhoon brought waist-deep floods to the area. Meanwhile, airports in the Bicol region sustained heavy damage due to the onslaught of Bagyong Rolly. Some airports, though, included the NAIA, are slowly getting back on their feet as operations resume today. Gerard de la Peña with the details.
Rosario spent the night at the Terminal 3 of the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. She was supposed to fly to Iloilo yesterday, but her flight was cancelled. Then operations at the NAIA were put off due to Typhoon Rolly.
Nawala na ako mauwian ng bahay. Nakarinta lang po ako dito. Nag-isa lang ko sa buhay ko. Tapos namatay pa yung pamangkin ko ng Thursday. Kaya kailangan ko talaga umuwi sana.
Authorities said crosswinds brought by Typhoon Rolly was too dangerous at 34 knots, when planes can only tolerate up to 30 knots.
Nababangga sa eroplano sideways. Delikado ho yun. So nagkaroon kami ng consensus base sa mga data na binigay ng airline sa Pag-asa. Nakapag-desisyon kami na to close the airport in 24 hours.
Because of this, almost 120 stranded passengers had to stay at the terminal. Airport authorities told airlines to prioritize stranded passengers for scheduled flights today. Accommodating stranded passengers should not be a problem, as NAIA said there are ample slots, even if only about 10% of flights are operating compared to pre-pandemic volume. Despite this, not all passengers can make it to their provinces right away.
Ang problema ho kasi, not necessarily is the flights, is the restriction of the local government. Doon tayo nahihirapan.
Naga Airport, meanwhile, sustained heavy damages as Typhoon Rolly pummeled through the region. Strong winds broke window panels, blew roofs off, and caused ceilings to fall down. The Civil Aviation Authority said, though, that flights still pushed through early this morning as the passenger terminal building, fire station, and administration building had already been cleared. CAAP has yet to make an assessment of Typhoon Rolly's damage at Virac Airport in Catanduanes. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, We Are One News.
Nasaan ang Pangulo trended on Twitter on Sunday as Super Typhoon Rolly battled through Luzon. A day after, we now see the proof of life netizens have been asking for. Let's get the details from Maricel Halili on this. Mase, President Duterte presided over the meeting on Typhoon Rolly a while ago. Anong latest?
Yes, Robbie, finally, the public has seen President Duterte on national TV after a number of people noted that he's nowhere to be seen at the height of Typhoon Rolly.
From Davao, President Rodrigo Duterte flew to Bicol to conduct an aerial inspection over the hardest hit areas, particularly Catanduanes and Ginubatan Albay this afternoon. In News 5's exclusive coverage, the chief executive was seen landing in Ginubatan to personally check the damage brought by Typhoon Rolly. After hearing the complaints of some residents, the chief executive ordered the investigation on alleged quarrying operations in the province. From Ginubatan, the president went straight to Malacanang to attend the cabinet meeting. Here, he took the time to thank the Bicol's local officials.
You have to credit the foresight of the local officials, that they warned the residents well in advance, and there was an evacuation way long before it actually happened. So for that alone, I'd like to thank the officials of Ginubatan.
Prior to this, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque defended the president's absence from the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC's briefing at the height of Super Typhoon Rolly on Sunday. Roque said, even though the president stayed in Davao, he's still closely monitoring the impact of the typhoon.
Sa totoo lang po, araw ng linggo naman yon. Pero miski araw ng linggo po, nandito po lahat yung kalihim para nga po iparating ang kahandaan ng gobyerno sa pagbibigay ng tulong doon sa mga nasalanta.
During the briefing this morning, NDRRMC reported that about 2 million individuals are affected by Typhoon Rolly. The hardest hit areas include Catanduanes and Albay.
Robbie, President Duterte has just concluded his meeting with the cabinet secretaries in Malacanang this evening. And it is interesting to note how he addressed his critics, asking where he was during the height of Typhoon Rolly. The president said that he sees nothing wrong if he stays in Davao at the height of Typhoon Rolly because he's still doing his job. He even brought his paperwork in Davao to make sure that all the papers are reviewed and signed. And he even sarcastically asked his critics, what do they want to see? Do they want the president to see in the middle of Manila Bay White Sand just to make sure that he is monitoring Typhoon Rolly? Aside from that, President Duterte also read a number of names during his briefing this evening. These are the names of workers from various government agencies who are suspended recently due to alleged or involvement in alleged corruptions. He was also he also mentioned in passing the issue on COVID-19 vaccine. He said that he will only assign Secretary Galvez to deal and negotiate with the COVID-19 vaccine because he doesn't want to see any committee handling that because he doesn't want to have a long process in dealing with the COVID-19. So officially, Secretary Galvez is now our vaccine czar. Robbie?
Maraming salamat, Maricel Halili. Now, Malacanang insists there was never any communication vacuum in the face of the onslaught of Typhoon Rolly despite the shutdown of media giant ABS-CBN. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said there were other media organizations, both public and private, disseminating information on the ground.
Gumagana po yung communication infrastructure ng gobyerno sa panahon ng aberya. So sa tingin ko po wala namang vacuum at nandyan din po ang ating mga pribadong news agencies, nandyan po ang TV5, nandyan po ang GMA7 at nandyan po yung mga matatapang at magagaling masisipag na reporters ng radyo. So sa tingin ko naman po wala pong nagkaroon ng communication vacuum.
Former Vice President Jejomar Binay had said the devastation caused by Typhoon Rolly was a reminder of the indispensable role of media in times of calamities. In a statement, the former Vice President said media coverage can spell the difference between life and death, especially in far-flung areas. He added that the closure of ABS-CBN, including its radio and regional network, left a noticeable void and that this experience should serve as a reminder how political decisions, quote, can have far-reaching and even tragic consequences on the lives of ordinary Filipinos, close quote. We'll pause for another break. When we return, Election Day is just hours away in the United States, and rivals U.S. President Donald Trump and Democrat Joe Biden head to closely fought states for the final stretch of their campaigns. This after the break. Good evening, you're still watching The Big Story. The Rolly-induced lahar flow is threatening not only the well-being of Albay residents but also the town's tourism sector. To learn more about Rolly's aftermath, we have Marlene Alcaide reporting to us live in Kamalig, Albay. Marlene, kamusta dyan?
Yes, Robbie, evacuees from Kamalig, Albay went home to find thick lahar inside their homes.
Typhoon Rolly unleashed strong winds, torrential rains, and almost zero visibility when it hit Purok 3, Iluwod, Camalig, Albay early morning Sunday. Lahar also covered the houses of most residents. A nearby dike was also destroyed. Its waters gushed into their homes that are already in ruins. Residents compare Rolly to Typhoon Reming in 2006. Edwin tried his best to recover his tricycle submerged in Lahar. Imelda was picking up their clothes from the mud. Even 70-year-old Elsa was left to her own devices.
Sisirahan ko sana po. At saka malalagyan ko ng ano doon sa simento. Ay nakita ko na yung tubig ang malaki gumagano na. Di umakyat na ako sa ano ng aparador ko, umakyat na ako sa beam sa simento.
Camalig Mayor Caloy Baldo Jr. has an appeal.
Yung dike, yung iba kasi tinamaan talaga ng mga kahoy. Yung dike kaya din nag-iba. Then, yung iba talaga medyo mahina talaga. Talagang nire-recommend ko nga sa nasa DP na wag naman patong-patong lang na bato. Dapat kada patong may semento. Yung po sana ang gawing dike. Kasi kung nakapatong-patong lang, matanggal lang yung isang bato sa ilalim, di dire-diretso na yan.
In Daraga, meanwhile, clearing operations are still ongoing as tourist destinations in the province were hit by the typhoon. The Cagsawa ruins in particular were in desolation. Mayor Victor Paredes is in low spirits, saying this will badly affect their tourism.
Akala ko ngayong December pwede na makabalik. Kaya lang ngayon, tinamaan naman. Medyo matatagalan talaga.
Mga ilang buwan na, sir?
Hanggang kaya pa ng Bondo pero hindi ko na kaya ng December.
On the bright side, there are no reported casualties thus far. Local government units are appealing to the national government for financial aid. Vice President Leni Robredo is expected to visit Albay as well as Catanduanes. Robredo first visited her hometown in Camarines Sur, where they distributed relief goods.
Robbie, Camalig Mayor Caloy Baldo Jr. has already suspended classes tomorrow to give residents more time to salvage whatever's left of their houses. They are also knocking onto the kind hearts of the public for donations. Robbie?
Maraming salamat, Marlene Alcaide. It's going to be a big day for the U.S. tomorrow as Americans vote for their next president. It's a choice between Republican re-electionist Donald Trump and Democrat former Vice President Joe Biden. At the home stretch of the campaign period, Trump urged voters to back him on Election Day, vowing yet again to make America great. But at the same time, the U.S. President cast doubts on the integrity of the election should the vote count extend for a few days. A record 80 million Americans have cast their votes ahead of elections amid concerns of COVID-19 transmission during Election Day. A Reuters opinion poll sees Biden's lead over Trump widening a little in the final days of this year's campaign in three critical Rust Belt states, which Trump narrowly won in 2016. Biden leads Trump by 10 percentage points in Wisconsin and Michigan and by 7 points in Pennsylvania. Biden urged Americans to head to polling booths on Tuesday and make their votes count. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again on Monday, 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. I'm Robbie Alampay. We are One News. Good evening.
Happy ba?
Oo naman.
Yeah.
Di ba? It was better than we expected, although it was still bad.